Well, earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky issued a statement ahead of the high-stakes meeting with President Trump. In a social media post on X, Zelensky said that his main goal is a reliable and lasting peace for Ukraine and for the whole of Europe, and it is important that the momentum of all meetings leads to precise results. He further said, "We understand that we shouldn't expect Putin to voluntarily abandon aggression and new attempts at conquest. That is why pressure must work, and it must be joint pressure from the United States and Europe and from everyone in the world who respects the right to life and the international order." Zelensky says Ukraine is ready for a real truce and for establishing a new security architecture. He has asserted that Ukraine wants real peace. He thanks the EU leaders and NATO chief and said that we coordinated our positions ahead of the meeting with President Trump. And this was actually in Washington, D.C., where the president of Ukraine met with some of the leaders in Europe. Our correspondent Susan Teherani is still with us. Pressure is piling up, Susan.
I know. Eric, I was just reading some of Zelensky's comments on social media and the ones that he made during a press conference earlier last night. He's really adamant that he doesn't want to give up any kind of territory, and he's hoping to get a better deal from President Trump as he walks into the White House. I don't know how well that's going to go, but he also mentioned that due to the Ukrainian constitution, he basically can't give up any territory, and it would require a referendum that the majority of Ukrainians are opposed to. So many are asking now, why did he decide to come to the White House, and why is this meeting taking place? Again, everything can change. Maybe something happens behind closed doors. But the more you look at Zelensky's comments prior to this meeting, not so much the Europeans, but Zelensky himself, there is a lot of daylight between what has been said on the U.S. side, on the Russian side, and how Zelensky is walking into this meeting, approaching it. He does say that he hopes for a lasting peace, but really how they're going to agree to anything today is really a big topic of concern. There's this narrative, I want to talk about this narrative that's somewhat perhaps misleading that's been going around, and that's the fact that, ultimately Vladimir Putin is going to get on the negotiating table what he couldn't achieve on the battlefield, which is the regions in Donbass and the territory that we're talking about. As our guest, Mr. Weyer, also noted very accurately once again, Russia is making a lot of advances in that region. It's very unclear that Putin is in a position to not gain that territory on the battlefield. So it's not like they don't have it. Yes, there are fortresses. They're not controlling some parts of it as of now. But to think that somehow this is the only way that Russia is going to be able to access those regions from Ukraine through the negotiating table with the mediation of Donald Trump, that's just, it's inaccurate. Russia will be making advances the more this war goes on.
They have made those advances as we speak, because we do understand that there were strikes in Kyiv just ahead of this meeting. Fred Weir, thank you very much for staying with us. There's something interesting that also happened today. The president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, made several calls to several leaders, and I will just give you a detail of the persons that he spoke to. He spoke to the president of Tajikistan, he spoke to the prime minister of India, he spoke to the president of Brazil, he spoke to the president of South Africa, and he also spoke to the president of Kyrgyzstan. What is he trying to do?
Well, look, one of the things that we have to think about in what happened in the past week and a half is why Donald Trump swung away from his determination to punish Putin, to push him to the negotiating table, to by levying tough sanctions, new sanctions on Russia, and also on Russia's trading partners, particularly India. And he did, in fact, slap those tariffs, special tariffs, geopolitical weaponized tariffs on India. And what happened afterwards appears to be not just India, but India and many other BRICS countries, including Brazil, big ones, pulled together and defied this attempt by the United States to twist their arms. You see, this is about unity among the BRICS, which is a new thing, a very new thing, and Putin, it matters a lot to Putin, because I think it gave him, one of the things that gave him the confidence to go and meet Trump in Alaska, the fact that his friends, and they're not allies, India is not an ally of Russia, but there's this new geopolitical alignment, BRICS, which is looking to make its weight felt in the world. And the fact that India got its back up and defied Trump really showed something that I think it must have inspired them in Moscow. I know that several Russian experts I've talked to were very upbeat about the geopolitical situation after the Indian Foreign Ministry issued some of those trenchant statements that it did. I think that is a major factor here, and what you're saying is Putin is calling leaders of the BRICS to keep them updated about how things are going. It tells you that this is how new alignments are emerging in the world. Who's who and who's in whose camp. Maybe it's too soon to talk in those Cold War era type terms, but it's definitely significant.
Mr. Fred Weir, just stay with me for a moment, because in less than 5 minutes, we do expect the president, or the man of the moment, Volodymyr Zelensky, to arrive at the White House lawn, and he will be received by President Donald Trump in a few moments from now, under 5 minutes, I'm sure of that. And this meeting is about to kickstart. All the European leaders or delegation has arrived at the White House. They were received by the special protocol officer at the White House. And in a moment from now, we should see the arrival of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House lawn, and then they will proceed to their much anticipated meeting. Mr. Fred Weir, before I let you go, there has been much talked about what Volodymyr Zelensky will wear, and we do understand that the president traded his traditional military garb for a black suit jacket. What does this signify?
This is it's not something I can relate very well to. You can see how I'm dressed. I think that there is this kind of puritanical mood in conservative America. That's what showed itself in the criticisms of how Zelensky was dressed. But this is Zelensky's shtick. He's a wartime leader. He dresses in military garb. But I guess, given what happened to him the last time, he's made some compromises, some sartorial changes, and I think we're wasting far too much time commenting on it.
That's right. Fred Weir, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to WION World is One today, and thank you for joining us at this hour. If you're just joining us, this is live at the White House. We are expecting any moment from now Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to make his way at the White House lawn, where he will be received by President Donald Trump and the leaders who've already arrived at the White House include NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Finnish President Alexander Stubb. And what you saw on your screen just moments ago, that will be the team or the cabinet members who will be with Trump during this high-stakes meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky and EU leaders, like I mentioned before. Susan Teherani is still with us live in New York. Susan, much anticipation, I'll keep on saying it, much anticipation ahead of this meeting. And you were talking to us about what if there is no conclusive results from this meeting, then what happens next? Maybe you can continue from there.
Yeah, much anticipation indeed, Eric. We can't stress it enough, just because of not only this meeting happening just shortly after, just so much shortly after that Alaska meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin, but also because of what happened at the White House the last time Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump met in that Oval Office. And of course, we know that Vice President J.D. Vance is going to be in attendance this time around as well. He was one of the main characters who was involved in that really interesting incident that happened, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's very highly likely. And the reason I say that it's very likely that they're not going to reach any kind of agreement, at least nothing to come out and talk about and celebrate, is just because of the line of comments that we've heard from Volodymyr Zelensky, not just after the meeting between Trump and Putin, but in the last 24 to 48 hours or so. He's even bringing in the Ukrainian constitution, saying that it's not me, it's the constitution, I can't do this. He's changed stuff in the constitution before, by the way, so it's not really clear how accurate that is. And he's the leader of the country. He can make decisions. He's the elected leader. I think one of the concerns that he has right now going into this meeting, and this might be one of the concerns for him not to try to give in, or how he's been advised by Europe to how much to give in and hope for a better deal from Trump, is that his legacy and his future as being Ukraine's president is also on the line. There is a lot of talk about, what would happen if there were elections taking place. Elections have already been postponed. So he's sort of the de facto leader of Ukraine. So he's thinking about his presence, his legacy at home. Of course, how he has to justify this deal and giving up this land to the people that were on the front lines who have been tirelessly fighting the Russians for the past 3.5 years. So if he can go back and justify that at home, then maybe there is some kind of hope that something maybe substantial is going to come out of this meeting. But if not, it's hard to imagine that no matter how many countries, how many leaders gather in one place and embark on the White House, it's going to change the fact that if some kind of tangible agreement is not reached today, if Ukraine doesn't agree to some parts of Russia's demands, then these negotiations can ultimately move forward. There's also, analysts believe, one option also that, they come out and say that we made some progress, we're going to continue talks and we're going to continue negotiations, we're going to push back that trilateral meeting, there's still hope for talks. And, these negotiations and talks will continue, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very serious and important topic. But I'm not sure what kind of 180 Zelensky is going to make going into this meeting, considering the fact that he's made these comments in the last 24 to 48 hours about land and Donbass and whatnot.